it's probably analogous to Dwight D. Eisenhower when he said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex." And then, David, to your point, what about 2024 military? Look at us, dude. Ukraine, Israel, Syria, like we got it covered.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And the UN in New York, I think it was in New York City, had a statue of the beast from Revelation out in front of their building, and you can Google that. I'm not sure that it's still
What a
there, but you can
nightmare.
certainly Google that and bring it up. So it's not like the UN
Oh
is
yeah.
has repented and changed their tune. It's right out there in the open who they are. Anyway, so and it's unfortunate that the church has strengthen ties with the UN. And so we have UN ambassadors coming in, and go search for United Nations on churchofjesuschrist.org. And there's article after article after article about the church
Hundreds
hosting,
of hundreds and hundreds and
yeah,
hundreds.
and the church hosting the UN, and also the church speaking, the leaders of the church speaking at the UN conferences here in Utah. So
All is not well in Zion. And that
yeah,
makes me think I just have to make one.
We lost your
Sorry.
audio. Keep going.
Sorry.
Oh,
One thing I just wanted to make sure I state too is here, even in Utah, we were just talking about it, is that we're going to have a new statue. It's looking like we're going to have a new statue right at the point of the mountain. And
let's go.
it's got rainbows on it. It's got a really nice name,
No, it
Statue of
doesn't have rainbows.
Responsibility.
They're not gonna
Well,
pull
but
one on with rainbows, bro.
at least if you look up Statue of Responsibility and look at the design, it looks like a stained glass that is the colors of the rainbow. Maybe they changed the design, but I'm just saying things are not well in Zion.
We're trending in the same direction as the rest of the world. And even unfortunately, the church seems to be trending ahead of the rest of the world as far as getting in bed with the UN and even Rome. I don't understand some of this, but um, back to my humanitarian donation. So as I saw those donations being given to the UN, I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this. And so I talked to my wife and said, let's redirect these somewhere else. And so we found a couple of organizations that I love, and they're not, it's not the church, but they're one's called Feed My Starving Children, and they give food packs to third world nations for about 29 cents a pack. They can get healthy food. And I was out in Cambodia a little over a year ago, and we were visiting this little village, and they had those food packs come in, and the poorest of the poor people there, they boiled some water and they put those food packs in, and then they served them up. The only nutrition they were going to get all day long. And anyway, there's just huge inequality between us here in the United States. Anybody here is filthy rich compared to those people in Southeast Asia or Africa, different parts of the world, and even in the church. And so there's this imbalance, and I see that Jesus says, "Inasmuch as you've done it to one of the least of these, you've done it unto me. And inasmuch as you have not done it to one of the least of these, you've not done it unto me." And this is a last days parable, the sheep and the goats, about judgment, and about when God comes in his glory and he divides the sheep from the goats. There are going to be people that are very surprised that they find themselves on the left hand of God. And it's not about whether you got an ordinance. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, well, you didn't join the right church, you didn't get the right ordinance, you didn't get this. He says, he identifies with the poor and the needy. He says, if you've done it to them, you've done it to me. And so our ability to be one with God and to do his work really is about serving his children, loving your neighbor as yourself. And when you love God, you are going to love your neighbor. And if Jesus was here, he would be doing that same work. So I love the title of your channel, Zion Media. My question is, are we trending towards Zion right now? If you just kept on whatever we're doing right now and you drew a trend line, how long would it take us to get to Zion? Would that be
so
years,
We can't
100 years,
even
or never?
we can't even keep the homeless people off of the church's $2 billion mall. Like we can't even take care of those.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we, this inequality, and Zion's supposed to be no poor among us, right? And all things in
Yeah.
common. And so why aren't we bringing up the poor? Because that's one of the things that's supposed to happen in the last days, is that we're supposed to finally redeem Zion. That's the parable of
So
redemption of Zion in D&C 101. It's supposed to
yeah,
happen. It needs to happen, but it's not trending. So why is that?
yeah. I mean, I was in the temple yesterday. It was War Temple night, so I'm there, and as we make these covenants, there's the covenant of living, the law of consecration. And every time I leave the temple, I'm like so committed to be a covenant keeper, right? We talk about this beyond the covenant path. I'm like, I want to be on the covenant path. I want to be a covenant keeper. But I leave that temple and I say, I can keep the law of chastity. I can keep the law of obedience. I can keep the law of sacrifice. Like I understand those. But when it comes to the law of consecration, like, and those people that know me know that if I see somebody in need, I'm constantly trying to help to the best that I can. But there are poor among me, and I don't feel like I'm living the law of consecration as I understand it. It says, as explained in the Doctrine and Covenants. And so I've searched the Doctrine and Covenants, and I'm like, we're making covenants in the temple on that particular one. And I'm having my own personal challenge of how do I live the law of consecration? Because we're not. And so somehow we've got to figure out that Joseph was trying to create Zion. He was unsuccessful. Well, now we've got an organization that says $600 billion. I think there might be a path where we can begin to start creating Zion.
Let's
we can at
go.
least we can at least start it. We can at least try and come up with a plan and attempt to do it. But what happens is we end up buying a $200 million condo property, which is great. Like, I
It was
guess
in it it was in San Diego, Oceanside. It was a nice property.
great property, but
Subscribe,
it's
subscribe to Zion Media. Just so everybody know.
yeah. So Adam, just so you know, part of our mission with this channel is we want to create Zion inside of the church. We want to figure out how that's possible. We know that we have a command to do that. We know that it's throughout the Doctrine and Covenants that we need to do that. We know we covenant to live the law of consecration. So how do we do that? And we'll shelf that and maybe continue that, because I want to go back to kind of where you are, where you're now finding other organizations that you're going to start, donating to directly.
Yeah. So, and it changes everything when you have a free will offering, and that you can see that impacts somebody on the other side, and you're not just throwing it over the wall for somebody else to do that with. And I think that the scriptures say all over the place, God requires the heart. And so when we take our offerings to God and say, this is what I really want, I really desire to help, for example, the poor and the needy. How can I do that? And so I changed my humanitarian donations. I redirected those. And then as I started investigating tithing, I saw that tithing wasn't, we talked about that tithing, the origin of tithing was for the poor. And then we have Malachi. It says, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, there may be meat in my house. So obviously these tithes are supposed to be helping the poor. I get that they also need to help the church organization. But as I investigated, I saw that less than 1% of our tithing was going to the poor and the needy. And so I'm taking 10% of my income for years and decades and decades. And I am the most dedicated member of the church. I just want to serve the Lord and to give my all. And I realize that less than 1% of my 10% is going to the poor and the needy. So that right there, I mean, when you're in the scriptures and God's showing you, in as much as you've done it to one of the least of these, you've done it unto me, and then you go, well, most of my extra money is not going to the poor and the needy. What do I do about that? So I had been praying about that and pondering it quite a bit. Took for a couple months, and I was up in Logan Canyon in spring of 2022, and the gate was closed to this fork of Logan Canyon called Temple Fork. And so I parked my truck and I walked up probably half a mile up the road, and there's this beaver dam. I was just there a week ago, and it's washed out. It's a travesty because it was this gorgeous pond, and I was alone because there's snow around. And anyway, there's this beaver just calmly cruising over the pond, and I just felt my heart open. And this is, being in nature, you guys have had those times when you're out in nature and your heart's just open and you feel connected to God. And I'm alone, and I think to myself, I can talk to God because my heart's opened, and there's no obstruction, and that's rare. There's always an obstruction of some kind. So I started talking to God, and I brought him my desires, and I said, God, I want to pay tithing, and I want to do what's right, and I don't want to be I don't want to be this guy that's just doing this because he wants to. I want to know what you want me to do, and I I'm having trouble with my offerings because they're not going to the poor and the needy. And so, can you give me some direction? And I received one of the most direct revelations I've ever had in my life at that point. And God said to me, He said, you're welcome to give your tithing to the church. You can totally do that. He said, however, whatever you give, you must be able to do with integrity of heart. And I'm like, okay, that's an answer. I can't pay tithing with integrity of heart. I can't feel like I'm giving my free will offering with integrity because it's not doing what my desires are. I'm not giving God the desires of my heart, and that's what He wants. And so it was a brilliant answer to me. It's not something that I could have come up with on my own, but God just helped me understand. And that's the cool thing, that when the Holy Ghost touches you, it's not just feel good stuff, but the Holy Ghost opens your mind and opens your understanding so that things become clear that were not clear before. And that's what happened there. And so I came home to my wife and I said, okay, here's what I received. And I said, I think we need to redirect our funds and find places to give to the poor and the needy that we feel good about. And so we took our tithing and began giving it directly to the poor and the needy. And it became not 10%. It was more like 20 to 30%. And we found just amazing places to take our tithing money and impact people in just real ways that changed their life and changed our lives as we gave. And this change from me going to LDS.org/donations, and clicking the button, reuse this one and sending off my 10%, changing from that to this free will offering and having people come to us with their needs and loving, being able to give to them and knowing this is what God wants me to do.
Did you find was it a far more rich experience? Did it change tithing for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it is night and day different for me. For me, this is night and day different. And I do want to disclaim, my revelation is not anybody else's revelation. So what God gave to me is for me alone. But for me, this has changed everything because it's allowed me to give God of the desires of my heart and it allows this connection to other people. Like I can give to them with all of my heart and they receive gratefully with all their heart. And instead of me throwing it over to the bishop and then doling it out in fast offerings or whatever, it's different. And like I said, we have third world countries where they are poor as dirt and they don't even have 3 meals a day. And you can't just teach them self-sufficiency and go on your way. They need wells built. They need infrastructure. They need the basics so that they can get a leg up. And so we've been able to help with some of these organizations. And this is why I was out in Cambodia last year. My brother and I went to Cambodia and Malaysia, and we saw some of the work that these charities were doing. And we saw something like well number 290 that one of the organizations had put in the middle of Cambodia. And usually people have to walk a kilometer with a bucket, and they get dirty water. And you put a well in, and then that whole community has access to clean water right there, and it's amazing. But if I desire to not just to give my neighbor money for their mortgage, which is fine, and we will help with that. That's fine. But if I can impact somebody in a much more deep way that could probably change their life and give them a leg up and give them something that can help them permanently, it's a terribly rich thing to do.
What was the process like as you, so you say, okay, you tell your wife, this is how we're going to do this now. So what was the process like for you in finding the right charities? Because the truth is, if you go look at the Kidney Foundation and you donate to the Kidney Foundation, like 85% of that is going to staff and things that aren't to help people that have kidney problems. So what is the process like for you as you and your family started looking out and saying, okay, where are we going to reallocate these funds?
Yeah, and I'm very cynical, very skeptical about this because I've been bitten more than once with these different organizations, and I with Feed My Starving Children, we've been out to their local food pack events where you show up, and we've got another one I think on July 12th that's at Gardner Village that we're going to, and you can go and help. They've got the rice and the vegetables and the vitamins and the protein that they're putting into the food pack. So you're actually packing those things and that are going to get shipped overseas. So with them, we had a hands-on experience with them.
So you're also donating time.
Yeah. I mean,
well as
I
the
want to
money.
know, I want to actually know the people. There's another organization called Advancing Native Missions that I started donating to and talked to their CEO, and they invited us out for I think it was a 30-year thing in Virginia, and I got to know the people there. And then as I talked to them, I said, I would really love to see how you're impacting these third world nations. And so they said, well, we can take you out with us. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So it was a little over a year ago. My brother and I went out and we went to Malaysia. We went up in the mountains where the natives still live in Malaysia. And 5 years ago, they had no electricity. They had no wells. They had their schools they had hardly the ability to go to school or have transportation. We went up there. They had built them a little church. They had a well there. They had electricity. We participated in a Christian church service with them, which was amazing. And they had a guy that was living 5 days a week on site there, helping that little community. And that had changed everything for them. And
How long have you been paying tithing this way? Like when did you get that revelation, and how long has this been, I guess, your program?
Yeah, probably 2 years and 2 months, something like that.
Okay.
We should get a list. We should get a list of all the organizations that you feel comfortable with. Maybe you only have one. I don't know how many.
Oh, there's at least two that I love, and that I'm.
Yeah, I'd love to put it in the
So,
description.
yeah, I
So
definitely love to send that to you.
this concept makes me think, what would it be like if for 1 month, let's just think here, this is just me, like I use my imagination. What would it be like if the church said, okay, in the month of July, every July, what we're going to ask all the membership to do is to take the tithing for that month, find those that are in need, or find these charities like you're talking about, and pay your tithing this way? What kind of experiences would happen? Would we taste just a little bit for a brief moment? Maybe what Zion is like, maybe what it is like to live the law of consecration. Like, these are ideas that I think about, like, why not try some of these things? Why do we continue in these traditions of our fathers, continuing to do the same thing over and over again? I'm just going to throw that out there to the universe, that maybe one of the analysts at the church watches this little podcast and they're like, huh, that might be a good thing. Let's do that. But
Absolutely. It would change everything for them to do that. I also thought